like you need to ship now. Like, what's holding you back?
Welcome to episode 18 of Tool Use. Tool Use is a weekly conversation about helpful AI tools where we teach you what is possible today with the help of industry experts sharing their experiences, perspectives, and real workflows. I'm Mike Bird, joined by Ty Fierro, and this week we're joined by Neil Chudleigh, the solo founder of Superwhisper. Neil, how's it going?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, thanks for being here.
We're super happy to have you on here. I use Superwhisper every single day, multiple times a day. It's my preferred way of prompting now. I've talked on the show multiple times about how I think like voice prompting is like so much more. It's like it just has a lot more data in the voice. You know, I can just speak my mind. I don't have to type. When I type, I don't get all of the emotion out. So I love just hitting control space. I just talk to it and I talk to it and I talk to it and just look off into space, and then I hit control space again, and then I just go off my prompting. Anyway, love
Nice.
Superwhisper. Super glad to have you on. And yeah, do you want to start by telling us kind of your background and how you got into building an AI?
Yeah, for sure. Before that, I totally agree. I think like people always sort of follow the highest bandwidth method. So like for reading information or getting information, in, visual is way faster than listening to voice. But for typing, there's very few people who can type faster than they speak. So the thing that gets your job done faster is always going to be the tool that you gravitate towards, and I'm glad you feel the same way. I can pop into my background quickly. I got into programming I guess in high school. Started making little apps with a friend, and then I kind of dropped it for a few years, and then started another company just in second year university or second or third. That was kind of crazy. We a couple of my co-founders actually went into like massive credit card debt to like pull it off, and we eventually got the YC interview and got in. And I ended up dropping out of school. So that was a crazy experience. We ended up coming back and basing in Toronto. It's valued over 100 million US, Series B company. At largest, I think we were 230 people, something like that. It's called Partner Stack. It's going great. They're having one of the best years we've ever had. I'm still, a co-founder, but left my operating role, CTO, and I left because of Superwhisper. So, I just started it basically out of frustration with the Apple voice to text, and seeing what was possible with Whisper CPP in particular. And thinking, seeing the performance that was possible with the M series chips and that open source repo, and just wanting like the good voice to text that I was enjoying on my Android phone at the time, to be brought over to my Mac and my iPhone. So, that's sort of, I guess the founding story of Superwhisper and how we got here.
Super cool, man. And it's really interesting to hear how you've had both approaches with like a founding team as well as going solo. Going solo, I imagine there's just a lot more on your plate. Do you leverage any AI tools in your workflow to help with that?
I'm surprisingly I'm pretty minimalist, but I would say I use Claude more than anything. Used to be ChatGPT, but I found for working with code and particularly their artifacts implementation, Claude is just so much more effective for because oftentimes it's 7 prompts before I get what I want out of it. I just find their UI UX like much more easy to use, and the model actually much better at programming for the speed trade-off. What else? I've been playing around with this new app, and they're actually going through YC right now. It's called Alex Sidebar. So it's kind of like Cursor for Xcode. Um, it's pretty good. I think it's still pretty early, so you got to go in with that understanding. Like, you can't expect it to be quite at Cursor level, but it's getting there. The AI that I'm not using in my workflow is the Apple Intelligence in Xcode. I have turned that off. It is super frustrating, particularly because it removes a lot of like the code completion that comes out of the box with, or overrides a lot of the code completion that comes with Xcode. So like when it actually has a function signature, it'll ignore that and put in something completely wrong. Um, uh, uh, I was using Warp for a long time, the terminal. Um, it's pretty good. I've recently gone back to just Alacrity, straight up. I'm excited about Ghosty. Haven't got a chance to use it yet, but I think uh what they're building there looks awesome. And kind of reflects exactly what I'd want out of a terminal. Um, and then Cursor, of course, for anything non Apple ecosystem. I'm using Cursor. I didn't even install VS Code on this like wipe of my laptop, which is a first in probably over 7 years. Or like basically since it was released, and Atom before that. So that's a pretty big deal. I think that team's really accomplished something pretty amazing. Um, uh, yeah, let me try and think. I don't. I'll let you know if anything else comes up. That's AI based that I'm using every day. But those would be the big ones.
I kind of want to touch on what you said about Apple Intelligence. Man, I've been so
Oh man,
frustrated with my experience with Apple Intelligence, man. I'm so disappointed because I'm such an Apple fanboy, truthfully. I've got the Apple Watch, I got the iPhone,
yeah.
I bought the nice iPhone so I could do Apple Intelligence, and it still can't even set a reminder correctly. It's really embarrassing. It's like, how do they get so far behind in the AI game? And
Yeah. They always have been.
yeah, it's true.
The,
But then they
it's
never really
always
spent the
been
time to do it.
the one thing I will say that is really good is the emoji generator. It's actually very fun. It's a little too uh like controlled. Like, it won't let you do anything crazy. Like, I wish they had a unfiltered mode or something. But I don't know. It's been fun in a few cases. Like, I have been able to come up with like little illustrations and stuff just on the fly, right in the keyboard. Just chatting with friends and family. So
Been having fun with that one. I've been trying the AI play or the image playground thing they have too, and I was like initially not very impressed. I think it's kind of a cool UX. It is cool that all that's happening on the phone itself, like the amount of
yeah,
compute to make those really pretty images, but I'm not that impressed overall. But one thing that I mean, Apple's just so good with UX and UI that they have this. I just noticed it when I was playing with the Genmoji thing actually, but when you type in a prompt into Genmoji, it highlights or it lowers the opacity on the words that it didn't use in the prompt, which I think was fascinating. I've never seen that before. So if you type in
interesting.
if you type in a little sentence and it's like doesn't recognize one of the words or it chooses not to use one, it grays it out. I was
Hmm.
like, man, that's a moment of AI UX I've never seen. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I've enjoyed most about Superwhisper is its UX, just hitting a single
Hmm.
key and typing right into it. And also last week I just started with Home Row and
Oh,
downloaded
nice.
that and hitting a hotkey and you get all these little things on there. That's been a
Yeah.
very unique UX. What was the reasoning behind acquiring that and kind of building that?
I've been loving Home Row. I actually just released a full uh, rebuild of the settings panel. Kind of bringing it over the same style as Superwhisper, and uh, I was a huge fan of that. I was a user of that app for a year before I reached out to Dexter with an offer. Um, it was funny. I actually was like I was a free user for so long, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna acquire this thing if you'll let me. And so I went and bought a license, and then responded to the receipt email saying like, hey man, I just bought this, but I'd like to like really buy it. So, like, can I get 30 minutes of your time? I won't waste it. And yeah, it worked out. Dexter's awesome. It's great dev. I just love the product. Um, and the crazy thing was he had basically put it onto maintenance mode for a year, like hadn't released anything, hadn't done any marketing, hadn't talked about it really. And it was still, chugging along, making, four figures a month, just because people love it. And, whenever I see that, I mean, and it resonates with me personally. I'm all in. So, yeah, we worked out a deal, and it's awesome. I'm closing in on like return on investment, and it's a fun little vacation from Superwhisper every now and then to just go in and work on it. Um, uh, yeah. What? Oh, I also wanted to bring the mapping of the accessibility API is pretty good in that app. It's very clean. It's very fast. Obviously, the response time is usually, I don't know, like under a second to get the labels put up. So I wanted that for Superwhisper. And so that was another big reason why to bring it in.
Nice. And you had mentioned Alacrity earlier, and I
Yeah.
explored the Alacrity hints, which is a similar premise. It just exposes the little key shortcuts, keeping your fingers on the home row. And it's been great. Just one of those little hacks that just improve the efficiencies.
I haven't tried that yet.
Definitely recommended. I've set up the mapping, and I have my config open source, so if you're free to check it out. But if there are links, you can open up automatically. If there are files, you can open them up. I even have it where if there's a link to a Python or a Markdown file, you can open up right in NeoVim. So it's just, keeping everything on the keyboard.
Yeah, man. That's the goal. I actually later today I'm chatting with the CEO of Augmental. It's like this mouth pad that goes in. It's essentially like a retainer, and they scan your mouth, get it fitted to your mouth, and it's essentially like a touchpad on the roof of your mouth that you use with your tongue. And anyway, I that's the goal, man. Get rid of the mouse, and maybe the keyboard. We'll see.
Yeah, no, just for accessibility and allowing everyone to use compute, which has been something that we've focused on in the past. It's a great tool that's coming out.
Yeah.
But pulling it back to Superwhisper, I'm curious how much attention do you pay to like the audio models that are on the market? Do you try to keep up on state of the art? I know that Superwhisper is hosting some now. Like, what type of exploration have you done there?
Yeah, for sure. I like pretty well anything that's out. I've done at least, some research on it to see if there's any promise. Tried and benchmarked most of the APIs and a lot of the cloud providers. Like kind of to an obsessive degree. I have a whole repo where I just like hammer stuff. My big thing is speed. I figure accuracy will like mostly work itself out over time, but yeah, I think and there's a lot of things you can do to improve accuracy. But yeah, a big thing is and I think one of the big advantages of local is avoiding the network latency. I think for kind of the largest series of Whisper models, we're sort of at this like performance floor where if you're cloud hosting it, and this is true with the model that I just released in Superwhisper, the Ultra Cloud one, which is like the fastest experience I've been able to create so far. Most of the time waiting is not compute, it's network latency. So I think we're at this like really interesting point that has come first for voice models, but will eventually come for language models as well, where for a certain performance, local is going to actually be better because you don't have this network latency in the way. Like the compute on your machine itself is going to be competitive with what you can put in a server rack to the point where hosting locally is going to give you better results faster. So it's really interesting to see kind of the two curves of hardware trending up and model efficiency and size trending down for the same like intelligence and results. So yeah, that's why Superwhisper, just riding those two curves and hoping to end up on the right side of the prediction.
Whisper was such a stepwise change from like what Apple had in there, because Apple transcription is so sad, and it has
Yeah,
the great little button right there at the top of your keyboard, and it should be perfect, but it just misses key points. When I
yeah,
first tried Whisper out when OpenAI launched it, I was absolutely floored, because especially with like the it knows where to put the periods, it knows where to capitalize the words, and it was shocking to me. So Super Whisper is the best way to use that for me right now. But I'm kind of curious, like what's next for Super Whisper? Is there a grand plan for it, or is it kind of keep increasing the model quality?
it's only released as experimental right now, but I think the future with Superwhisper is really taking a lot of, I would say my biggest critique of the application is that it's a enthusiast product, right? It's if you want to go beyond voice to text, it takes a considerable amount of know-how and like savvy to get it configured in a way that it's working really well with the AI. I think like that's the feedback I've gotten, and that's my own personal critique of the issues with it. So what I'm trying to do is just make it easier to take advantage of the language models and use more system context to enhance the super mode to give you what you want when you want it. Um, this alongside like improving the meeting use case and cross device econfig and recording sharing. So making sure like stay in sync across your phone or multiple Macs or whatever it is. That's sort of it. There's not I don't have any sort of like evil master plan beyond that. I think just driving really, really good design and UX, performance, stability, all those things would be the top of mind. Again, the latest model release was just how low can I possibly get the latency on this thing, and I'm gonna continue to push that envelope.
I feel UX is incredibly important. A lot of people are struggling to integrate AI into their workflows just because it feels like there's extra friction or it's not intuitive for them. One thing I think Ty and I both love about Superwhisper is just hotkey up and just going. I saw you have push to talk as well. I
Yeah.
don't personally use it, but a lot of people do in their workflows, which is great to see. What type of process do you follow to try to polish that UX? Is it what feels right to you? Do you do user testing, or how do you get it try to be as seamless for people?
So I have a internal group called the Homies, which is like, the biggest power users sending probably, I don't know, like 100 messages a day in that chat. Just like quick feedback. They're all probably to a fault, like experts on the product. So there's also the Discord, which is I think it's at like 1,100 people now. So conversation's really active in there. I run my own support, so I get all the feedback there. Twitter is a good source sometimes as well. Yeah, tons of different places I'm collecting feedback from every day. It's really a mess, to be honest with you.
So a question I have, and I genuinely interested in the answer, because there's so much AI content out there. There's so many new launches. There's so many new models. How do you stay on top of it all? Is it just kind of scrolling Twitter and just kind of reading it through all there, or do you have any special way of learning about all the new things that come out in AI?
I would say like the core things would be Friends, Hacker News, Twitter. Twitter would be a big one. I'm on there way too much.
Same.
Yeah, pretty much those. You guys have anything, like any newsletters or anything you follow?
Yeah, I have a Swix's newsletter, which is kind of nice. Swix is like is it Latent Space? No, I don't know exactly what his newsletter is, but his newsletter is pretty great because it uses a bunch of agents to scrape Discords and scrape websites and all sorts of things. It's pretty interesting. But I really want to build my own agent.
Discords are a good one that I forgot. That's a big one. I'm in, again, too many. Spend too much time on there, but anyway.
Totally fair. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago that built his own agent that does nothing but go out and search Twitter and Discords and all sorts of things. It just gives him an email every morning about all the things that you should pay attention to, and it's like knows him and knows like what he's interested in, and so it can avoid a lot of the noise and just give him the signal that he needs. So I want to try
Yeah.
something like that, but I haven't gotten to it.
Interesting.
On that vein, is there anything that excites you the most in the next year about in AI, or any big launches coming up, or anything you think OpenAI or Anthropic might do?
I think the biggest thing we're getting to is, yeah, just this reliability level that's allowing a lot of these like agentic workflows to actually work in a way that is useful for non-trivial applications. I'm I'm personally really excited about what that means as a indie, and what, like, as a solo founder, and how much I can do, with that. In particular, a lot of the things that take me time, I haven't found AI a huge mover for actual difficult programming. But for kind of rote or boilerplate stuff, it's amazing. Way faster than I could do anything myself, obviously. And I feel like it's getting to that point where I'm at, like, I'm trusting it to the point where I would let it take over for things like support, a refund request, billing issues potentially, these types of things that just like sort of eat away at my workday and are responsibilities. So I think that's really exciting. Like the voice quality, the call voice quality. I actually did a phone call with I have two kids, and ChatGPT just released the like Santa voice. I don't know if have you guys seen this?
Yeah.
So we did a couple phone calls with Santa last night, and I'm amazed that their recognition of speech, even for children, is getting way better than it. I don't know if you know, but previously it was terrible. Like, it would mishear them all the time, and especially if they were screaming and laughing because they're talking to a robot. But yeah, it's getting really, really good, and I think that in general, I mean, it's going to change the face of so many customer service, so many just interactions with businesses. I think the next year is going to be extremely exciting.
It really is. It's just going to keep accelerating.
Yeah.
Last week, or I guess earlier this week, Google released the ability to have a voice conversation with the video that you're seeing, and then OpenAI released it the next day. You mentioned with Superwhisper trying to pass more context in. Do you foresee any novel ways of being able to interact with your computer or compute in general using your voice through these different modalities?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is some of that already implemented in super mode. So if you actually have text selected and you're in super mode, which you can enable from configuration, it's marked as experimental. But if you have text selected and you're in an editor, Obsidian, Notes, whatever, it'll actually apply that modification to the text given the context of the rest of the note, and the app. And I think taking that further, doing RAG, personalizing the configuration of Superwhisper, and bringing that further along, maturity wise, is going to be a big mover as well. I do struggle with fundamentally Superwhisper is a privacy focused tool, right? Like that's core pillar, and I struggle with like balancing, pushing the envelope in terms of awareness and context, while also being transparent and straightforward with, hey, this is what I'm reading off of the, or this is what Superwhisper is reading off of your desktop, and and using in the completion. So it's definitely a fine line to balance. I feel I hopefully have done a good job so far. But and yeah, just continue to invest in that and go deeper into it.
It's been a crazy couple years for how we interact with our computers. It's for sure. It seems like OpenAI's doing it, and Apple's doing it, and Google's doing it. And once the big players get involved, things start to move pretty quick. So I'm excited to
Yeah,
see what comes of it. But I
yeah.
guess less of the big guys and now more into like entrepreneurial small company. Like you're a solo founder. Like what have been like the biggest challenges for you trying to start an AI company or being a solo founder and, the AI tech stack's not the easiest thing to mess with. What's been the hardest part for you?
A lot of the boring stuff is surprisingly still pretty difficult. Um, I would say the AI stuff is tricky, and because it's non-deterministic, that can also bring a lot of challenges. Productizing offline models is also something that there wasn't a lot of beta to go off of when I started. Like how do you and the ones that there were out there, the UX was really targeted at engineers, LM Studio and Olama and that kind of thing. Um, and so I think those were challenging, but it's still not easy to set up a corporate entity, get your billing set up, get the license issuing, the emails, all these extra things. Um, I've long kind of collected feedback from people on like shortcomings of Stripe and Lemon Squeezy and Paddle and these types of products. I feel in some ways we've moved backwards from where Stripe was at in like the 2010s. When I started my last company, I think it was easier to get up and running than it is today, which is a crazy thing to say, I think. But yeah, I mean, like some of the trials on that have been just miserable. And it's very serious stuff too, right? You're talking about people's money processing, the ability for your company to process money. I will say they've made incorporation very easy. Stripe Atlas is awesome. But yeah, I've had more um, billing and uh, like payment processing issues than probably uh, than I feel like we should be having in 2024. Anyway, so I would say that was one of the things. There's still not really a really good merchant of record solution, I don't think.
Do you think any of these issues are things that AI will help with, or do you think it's just a fundamental bureaucracy or the incumbents being there so powerful, just moving slowly?
I think it's probably a couple of things. Like a lot of these solutions are built out for SaaS, not for Mac, like not for licensed applications. So I think that's one of the tricky parts. It's like you're stuck building a lot of these things yourself. Lifetime payments are not a common thing. That's mostly subscription. Um, what else? Um, yeah, so there's just like the demand isn't there for a lot of people to um for a lot of these companies to like kind of cater to that problem set. And I think also if it's speaking from like the experience of integrating Stripe. I went from Lemon Squeezy to Stripe. The um the issue the issue is more so that they've just gone to absorb so many different use cases, right? And the products become so broad. There's so many ways to use it. There's so many ways to integrate, and uh, the most uncommon one is the one that I wanted to use, which is like kind of, like you build your own UI and use it more as an API. That a lot of people aren't doing that anymore. So yeah, I think those were kind of the two things, and ran into a lot of issues with both solutions. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, that's not like AI focus, but anyway, I would say it is actually one of the things that was like most surprising to me in terms of difficulties.
I'm so excited for that Stripe Agents API. Like, I know it's not complete and it's kind of in its infancy right now, but I feel like it's the right path forward to, expose a lot of your internal company APIs as like an agent SDK. And I'm curious to see what people are going to build with that. And I hope that makes some of this billing stuff easier, but time will tell.
That'd be cool. I haven't even heard of that. I'll definitely be uh, looking very quickly to how I can integrate that. That's probably one of the biggest time sucks, as I was mentioning earlier. As a solo is just handling billing. It's really a pain.
It's pretty cool because they have they do two things. One, you can wrap an LLM, and so that you can charge like usage-based pricing to customers, which I think is super cool. It's like every one of these apps has these like credit systems that you have to implement, and then you have to deduct credits and add a profit margin and all of that. And Stripe makes that really easy now with this new API. But more excitingly, I think, is they expose all of the internal, well, not all, but many of the internal like functionalities of Stripe as agent tools. And so you can actually have an agent, like a personal agent that has access to your Stripe that can send invoices, handle refund requests, and, do a lot of the boring stuff. And so I
Yeah,
hope more companies start to do that type of thing because we're building towards an agentic future here.
yeah.
But
I have that on my to-dos, like a automated refund request handling and invoice issuing. Um, I just flabbergasted that those aren't things that just come with checkout. Um,
crazy, right? Well,
insane.
take a look at it. It's pretty fun. And if you use it, let me know how it is. I want to try to play with it soon. But okay,
Yeah,
taking this somewhere a little bit different. I think we were all kind of lucky to have learned to code before LLMs. And so we got to learn code through different means. I learned through YouTube and learning through Udemy and books and things like that. And nowadays, like learning AI is so much different. And I feel like there's some things in development that make a lot more sense to learn now than others. Some of these things like CSS and some of that, I feel like these models are going to take care of pretty soon here. Is there any what do you think like the highest leverage skills are for devs now? And like, what do you think we should be spending our time on learning? And what should we be delegating to the models?
I think design and UI UX is really valuable. I think it's something that like a lot of engineers, because they're generally going to be more uh, logically minded and maybe a little less, on average, speaking for like the average engineer, the stereotypical engineer is going to shy away from design and UI UX. But there's this magical thing that happens, and I would consider myself somewhere in between on design and engineering. I'm not an amazing designer. I would definitely put my skill set further in the engineering skill tree. But the value of like the development cycle and interacting with something as you develop it, there's no way you can design flat a full user experience in the same way that I design in code, and that is such an advantage, I think, over traditional, flat design in Figma or Sketch, which I use both of those too at like a early prototyping stage. Um, so I would say, what AI allows us to do is relinquish a lot of the time where we were writing, boring code, boilerplate, volume stuff, and relinquish some of that to expand our skill sets to take more of the product and like a broader understanding of the customer. So both, design and product needs, and putting that more into your single skill set. Of course, if you're at a big company, that should still be augmented by someone who's, doing that professionally. But to take some of those skills and to really, you get a flat design and go back to it with, go back to the designer with like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this interaction? Like, try out this demo, this sort of thing. Or if you're solo, your ability to iterate and push things forward. I think AI is still a long way from designing nice work. I don't know if you've ever tried to get anything visual out of it, but like if you're outside of, like ShadCN or like one of these like kind of UI libraries into something custom, it's like completely incapable of designing anything that looks nice, especially if it's like a unique UI or interface. It can't even, I can't really design nice, like, I don't know, basic, like a combo box sort of thing. Even if you have any sort of unique constraint, it just like completely falls apart. So I think that's something that, I'd love to see it be able to do it, but I'm just not seeing it yet. And then like kind of stepping up in a way, like bird's eye view, just having a good understanding of, I think infrastructure is important. I think you seen the movie Idiocracy. We're getting to a point where like we're so removed from the base materials of compute that like, with great tools that I use, like, right, like Supabase, for example, where like people are like, oh, I don't know how to do, I just like, it's Fly, or like it's Supabase, it's Vercel, and they like to haven't ever actually configured anything themselves or like set up a virtual machine or anything like that. I think like that understanding is still very important, and like the same as programming, understanding the core principles is always critical. I don't think there's ever been AI code that I've put into my code base without like at least 30% of it being modified. That would be like sort of a minimum. And I often find the hardest to find bugs are AI initiated, because they look so correct, but they're so wrong. So I don't know. I'm like, until you get on a loop with like something like Devin or one of these agents that can go run the code and is actually smart enough to find its own bugs, I think there's always room for like the curious, energetic engineer to outpace what people say, like, oh, programming, AI is coming for your jobs. It's like, it's not. It's making us go faster and allow us to do more, but it's not replacing a human yet. I wouldn't say. A lot of these things come down to taste, right? And AI just doesn't have taste.
Yeah, it's one thing we've encountered a lot, and I'm one of those stereotypical devs where design is not my forte, all about the back end stuff. We did have a guest on one of our earlier episodes, Dillian. He did Magic UI, beautiful components. They look phenomenal. You see them all over the web. Did you just have a natural eye for design? Was it something trial and error? Do you follow like certain design principles? And if so, like, where'd you learn them?
So yeah, I've always drawn, like since I was a young kid, and I've always taken like creative arts classes in school. For web design, all the early iterations of Partner Stack I designed with my co-founder. And yeah, we like collaborated pretty heavily on that stuff. So just reps there. The Tailwind guys actually released a book called Refactoring UI, which I would recommend to anybody who's like looking to get, I would call that book like the fundamentals, essentially. It's really great in terms of like typography and spacing, and some like elite designers are probably turning up their nose, but I think like in terms of a single book that you can recommend that covers so much of the basics, it's really awesome. I would say though, like, make sure you augment that with your own style, or your company's style, and make sure that you're not just building Tailwind flavor. I feel like a lot of the web, and this happened before with Bootstrap as well, like kind of in the early 2010s, like everything just looked like Bootstrap, even if it wasn't. Like people were just like ripping off the Bootstrap styles. And I think a lot of the same has happened with Tailwind. I myself am definitely guilty of this, and it took me a while to like break out of that cycle and develop something that actually looks interesting. So yeah, like once you're kind of done like getting your fundamentals tightened, like go and find designers you like, and get their feed and just like follow their work. Go and find things that inspire you and collect them, and like iterate on that until you develop your own style, and just kind of go from there. I think it's always, you're always iterating. Like, I'll look back at something from 2 weeks ago and be like, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, like that's so ugly. So yeah, it's like constant iteration. It's never done.
I think you're touching on something pretty profound here with the taste that you said. I think having taste is something these models won't have for a while. I think another word that kind of fits here is soul. I think there's a lot of these applications that you could tell just came right out of Bolt New or came out of someone's cursor agent, and they don't have any soul to it. It feels like a robotic, website of sorts, and with that very standard Shad-CN Tailwind style. But a
Yep.
lot of these really impressive startups recently feel like they have a soul behind their product, and it feels like there's really impeccable taste. So I feel like that's probably the thing that I'm trying to focus most on in starting a company is applying soul and just a sense of like no one knows your business better than yourself, and these AIs aren't going to know them as well as you do either. And so if you can tell the AIs kind of like what your taste is for the product, maybe you can get them to get close, but it's never going to be as good as what you can do yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one last question for you.
All right.
If you could have learned anything earlier in your developer journey, what would it have been?
I think really learning Vim was a big unlock. I did that pretty early on though, so it's a bit of like a miss in terms of an answer to your question. But that I see like some devs are so reliant on their mouse, like it's pathetic, honestly. Like, sorry, but it is. Watching them use their computer is like really painful. And like I think like learning, like spending the time to learn the like just keyboard shortcuts in general and like how to use your tools is and like change your tools and try new ones all the time as well. Like experiment and like invest in your skill set. That way is something that like a lot of people say, oh, you're just like wasting time dicking around with tooling, and it's not the case. Like I do think like all those things make you better, and the mechanics of making changes is actually really important. Particularly now, there's like so many things that are huge unlocks if you're still like, if you're still opening up Claude and copy pasting into your editor, like maybe you should like go a little deeper than that. Like or whatever. If you're still like taking your hand off your keyboard every time you need to move your mouse, like that's not great either. Yeah. Building your own tools too. Like build your own tools. Don't always like lean for someone's NPM. Go and read the repo, but like build your own tools. Like generally you're gonna need like 10% of the library. Like sometimes it's better to just build your own. That one took me a long time to learn.
And last one for me, they say we're in the age where they're going to be a single person unicorn company, and a lot more unlocks from all the advancements that people can use to build their own companies. Do you have any advice for other people who want to take the plunge from a well-established funded company onto doing their own thing and bootstrapping solo?
I would say like if you have a good salary and you have a lot of responsibilities dependence wise, like don't jump in, go whole hog right away. If you're young, go do that 100%. Go couch surf and just like dirtbag it. If to take a term from climbing. But yeah, don't take the risk that matches your situation. And I would say also don't fight. I see a lot of people like indies in particular picking kind of boring ideas and fighting with them for years. Like 2 years they'll be trying to like make something work, and it's like you're gonna know fairly quickly if you struck a chord with your audience. In my opinion. So yeah, don't cling on to an idea too much. Don't be afraid to change. The other thing too is just you gotta ship. Like to get to that point of like, hey, is this going to strike a chord with anybody? Like you need to ship now. Like what's holding you back? Send it to 20 people. If you don't want to do the product on lunch, fine. but like send it to 20 people who actually use it and like get feedback. Do the boring stuff. Like you need to do it. Your first product's probably going to suck. All mine did. So yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. Just get it out there.
Well, it's been great having you on, Neil. Thanks for being on here. I've learned a lot. It's been I'm gonna keep using Superwhisper. Please keep pushing updates because I'm every time the little update box pops up on my screen, I'm like, ooh, what's on this one this time? Pretty fun.
Nice.
Yeah, we appreciate you having you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And before we let you go, is there anything you want to plug to the audience?
Superwhisper and Homero, check them out. Tons of stuff online, and I'm sure there'll be links down below.
Absolutely.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Have a good one.
Later.